A short time ago in a galaxy nearby, a podcast was made to inspire and entertain. Casual Space. Making space available, one story at a time. Your host with grace, Beth Mond.
Hello, friends. Welcome to this episode of Casual Space, number 4 in our Summaries series. Not to be confused with summaries, but summer-ease. That was the suggested title given to me by my co-host today, Hannah Stanley. She's my friend and colleague, and she's an awesome broadcast journalist as well as a Disney insider. What does that mean? It means she works for Disney, and she has for quite some time with the parent company as well as actual Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida. Now, before we revisit a fun conversation with Hannah, I want to tell you what happened to inspire this week's episode. Way before I went down to visit Hannah and do some work in Orlando, I and my husband were sitting and watching, which is really rare that we sit together and watch the same show. You know what I'm talking about, right? The History Channel has this new wonderful series called How Disney Built America. Now, you can see it on television, traditionally on cable, I suppose, or you can watch it online. It's, again, the History Channel, and it has this wonderful walkthrough of the last 70 years where Disney, like space exploration, and agencies like NASA have pushed the boundaries of art and science through the work of what Disney calls their team of dreamers, designers, and builders known as the Imagineers. I just love that so much. And this show, How Disney Built America, is the story of how since their very earliest days, beginning with Walt Disney himself, Imagineers have turned the impossible into reality, creating the mass entertainment experiences and, here's my favorite part, changing the world in the process. And that, my friends, is a perfect segue to invite you to do the same. How can you, like Walt Disney, take a story, turn it into an experience, and also change the world? It seems like a really big ask, doesn't it? Or at least a nice invitation. Not only can you do it, you can do it today, and you can do it for free. Stories of Space takes your ideas about how we're going to live and learn and survive and thrive in the future. As we explore the cosmos in space, we capture your story for free on the website, storiesofspace.com, and we send that story to space. Yeah, to space. And we're going to be doing that at the end of the summer. So right now, Mission 3 is open, meaning we're collecting stories as we speak on the website, and we're collecting them all so that we can prepare for a launch at the end of the summer from Canada's very first commercial spaceport in Nova Scotia with our launch time partners, Maritime Launch Services. So this is not just a Disney dream. It's very much a reality, and it's a wonderful story because it's yours. And I would like to welcome a very new storyteller who I hope sends us her story. She's very young, and I'm sure she's listening with her mom, who's a colleague and friend of mine as well. Hello, a special shout out to Brynn. Brynn, I cannot wait to read your story about space. And if you can't write yet, you can tell it to your mom and she'll type it into the website from any language, from anywhere in the world where you would like to share it from. As a matter of fact, we have our very first stories right now in French, which we are accepting. So check it all out, storiesofspace.com, and welcome to the show, Brynn. It's perfect timing that we have a young listener because we're going to be talking all about Disney. Now, not necessarily just Mickey Mouse, although that was a wonderful and innovative first step for Walt Disney. Do you know that Walt Disney did so many inventions, everything from the camera he used to create depth and movement in his first animation movie, Snow White, to building something from nothing, literally nothing but swamp at both Walt Disney World and out in California, Walt Disneyland. And let's just all agree that having a Disney experience is something we can all point to and be able to describe and understand, whether it's a movie, a book, a story, going to the theme park, being on a cruise. Disney has very much invented things that we both appreciate and use in our life in some way, shape, or form, not unlike space exploration itself. So without further ado, let's get into some more examples from a Disney insider herself, someone who's so much fun to talk to, my friend and colleague, Hannah Stanley, who's going to walk us through this wonderful episode all about being at the intersection, really, of Imagineering the future, Disney innovation, and space exploration. Here we go. How do you think, as we apply this throughout our theme today, Disney was way, for an animator to be so inventive in so many other ways, like we're talking about the train, the parks. Then let's get into Epcot, because he even took his exhibits to the World Showcase. There were so many things that he did off the frame that went into our daily lives that we enjoy and appreciate.
A lot of these things that we know and have experienced for decades and decades, and maybe even take for granted, were created for World's Fair expositions. Small World is one of them. So, and I'm trying to think, Carousel of Progress is another, where the audience rotates around the stage and they do it in wedges. And really, if you think about line science and how you want to move these people, you can't have them watch a whole show for 20 minutes and then empty the audience. So how can we do that? Okay, well, we'll make pie wedges. And we can load an audience every 15 minutes or every 5 minutes. And then they go through 4 different, innovations. And that was, it's in Tomorrowland, which is a little bit of, it's becoming far more tomorrow than it used to be even a few short years ago. But a lot of those things were, how can we push? How can we really be innovative and show the world where we're going? Not just where Disney was going, but where the world is going in some of these creations.
So many examples throughout the parks, too. I don't think I'm giving anything away about how garbage is collected, how bugs are
the bugs is a cool thing. Yeah, there are no mosquitoes at Disney World. And that's...
And you're in Florida, by the way.
And in Florida, and it's swampy. It's swampy. And they hired a man, and it's General Joe. It's one of the big ferry boats is named after him. But they brought him in to figure out how to do this. One, to engineer how you put a very sizable piece of land with heavy things in the middle of a swamp, but also how to not have bugs that would carry disease. At that point, it would have been malaria. And there is no standing water. There can be no mosquito hatches without standing water where they would lay their eggs. So if you have no standing water, you have no mosquitoes. And you only really have to do that for a perimeter, because mosquitoes can only fly like 100. Wow. This is, by the way, me being nerdy that I know this.
This is the show. You're in the right place. I promise. But there's so many examples like this. The garbage, the trash, the transportation, the way Disney moves people through.
The utilidors are another great example where the park was designed to be a showpiece and be this incredible place for families to be together and not have garbage. So Walt, and this goes back to Disneyland days when he was designing this, he watched a man walk who was eating, I think, a hot dog, how many steps before he wanted to throw something away. And then, and he threw it, I think, on the ground. He saw him throw it away. And so Walt figured out how many steps each garbage can had to be, so that they could, wherever you look, there's a garbage can. Wow. And you don't have to go more than, I think it's 17 steps.
I need that in my house.
Don't we all? Don't we all? But the utilidors are ground level. You don't realize it when you're going into the park, but you're actually going up a hill. And underneath are hallways, and it's a hub, just like the park is. And that allows cast members to get place to place without needing to be crossing over through crowds and in costumes.
Brilliant.
And yeah,
Really great.
Really incredible.
Take that, United Hub Chicago. Let's get this going. Have you ever been down there?
No.
Oh, it ain't no Disney. Let's just say that. Said no Disney.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got innovative parks. Now, because he was always inventive, but the beauty and the talent and the showcase and the thing that takes us into the next level is he brought it off the paper. And he always was looking for a better way to produce everything. So here comes Epcot.
He wanted to plus everything.
Oh my gosh.
It was plussing.
Is that what he called it?
Yes. One of the things he called it.
Well, he did it and throughout history. So did you know, you probably did. This is like the only Disney thing
I hope I didn't.
bring.
I love learning new things.
No, you knew this.
Okay.
That Disney worked with Wernher von Braun. And a lot of, we saw it growing up as kids, maybe even a generation before us, when he would do the Sunday series and he would showcase some of his, not just animation, but his ideas for tomorrow, not just in the parks, but on rockets and space exploration and all kinds of neat stuff. And he would work sometimes with Wernher von Braun directly. Epcot, to me, even though Walt didn't get to see it, correct?
No, he never saw Disney World. He passed away before it was done, and Roy was the one who brought that to fruition. It was, he had flown down here to Florida to Disney World, but it was not even close to, no. However, he had conceptualized it, which is really interesting because there are presentations that we have on film. Everybody can see them, of him talking about Epcot and having the artist renderings. And the name is Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. And it was designed very differently. It was supposed to be a city. It was supposed to be a residential area and business. And it turned into a second gate for Disney, for Walt Disney World. But it is still in the spirit of learning and experimenting and things. That's why some of the new things that are at Epcot are just really, in my opinion, going back to what the core mission of Epcot was.
Epcot could be a city I'd love to live in. I know it was just an experiment, but when I think about how we're going to live off planet, it would be great. When I walk through Epcot, I get it. I see it. I see places that are segmented into what makes sense, the transportation of it all, the flow, the recycle, the sustainability that's there, the nod to Earth and protecting Earth. This place works. So why wouldn't we reproduce it as a city elsewhere, especially off planet? So wow, again, Walt, thinking so far into the future, do we know if Epcot has ever been reestablished or redesigned elsewhere outside of Buena Vista?
Oh, that's really interesting. That is not something I can say definitively. But when you were saying that it would be an example of something that could be created off planet, it's actually sort of what I envision when I think of communities off planet, in that we would need to have all of our resources close. It's not like we can go New York to LA to get things when we have these really specific needs on different planets or different areas. So it would be something where you would have a centralized hub and you would have community or living space and working space and energy space. It's the initial concept is something that I could very much see being emulated off planet.
Yeah. Speaking of space, you took a tour. Here's how we're going to connect this, which I love. You took a behind the seeds tour.
Yeah, Seeds, SEEDS, which I've long wanted to do, and I can't encourage it enough because it was, I don't even know why I've never done it before. It wasn't the cost. It was, I just was like, I think it just never happened.
Yeah.
And my kids were never really old enough, and
Sure.
they got to go with me. I got tickets for all of us, and I was only sad that you weren't with us. But what's so interesting is it is in the land area of the science portion, which is the front portion of Epcot. And you can take a little boat tour, which I've taken 14,218 times, and see all of these innovations in hydroponic growth for plants. Much of the food that is served in resorts and on property, even for our animals at Animal Kingdom, comes from these greenhouses. So I got to go behind the scenes with a tour group. It's something you guys can register for next time you're here. And one of the things, and I was like, I can't believe Beth isn't here. They were talking about how some of these experiments and some of these techniques that are there was a clean lab that we were not able to go into, but we could see.
Was it clean?
It was spotless. As many things at Disney are, but because it was so, because it's a clean lab, we were not able to go in. And it was through this window we could see, and they told us that some of the research was currently being used at Station, the International Space Station, for growing plums of all things. But they were using grafts of plants. I actually bought 2 of them that are growing in agar and can be in their own little, and have their own little terrarium that while they are growing, they can just be completely right there in this little capsule. Amazing. And they don't need extra dirt. They don't need extra nutrients. All they need is right there. And these are things that, of course, other scientists have been working on. Yeah. But Disney is doing projects for the USDA. And of course, for Disney, we have our own projects. But then also sharing these innovations. Another thing I actually didn't tell you about.
Radishes.
No, Beth hates radishes.
And they grow them in space, which I asked
if anybody
myself why.
wants to troll Beth, just send her radishes.
No.
But they were talking about how, and I'm looking for a picture. They were talking about how they had an infestation of these little bugs, and I'm looking up the name of them. They're leaf miner flies, and we don't want to spray things with bad chemicals. Yeah. So they do soft chemicals. So they either use rosemary oil or things that are still organic or still healthy for people. But they ended up bringing in, and I'm scooching through, parasitoid wasps. Parasitoid wasps.
Oh, that doesn't sound like a sci-fi movie gone wrong.
Right. And I asked that. I was like, wait a second. I've seen this. Like, we bring in this to take care of that. And then we have a bigger problem. And they said, no, it's actually interesting because it kind of balances it out. The parasitoid wasp, it needs these, whatever I said they were, flies, leaf miner flies, to have their hatchlings. And it's actually a very cool process, which I'm not going to get into. But they keep it balanced. So, and the wasps don't sting humans. They're not that kind of a wasp, which wasps are butts. They're just jerks. So,
I'm just thinking of the song in my head right now, the little old lady that swallowed the wasp to swallow the fly, to swallow the radish.
Yes.
Oh my.
Yes. Yeah. So what
you need a bigger wasp to eat that wasp.
You do.
And then a bird, and then a man-eating bird.
Yes, and then before long, it's no longer.
And then it's Jurassic Park.
And then it's Jurassic Park, which is a totally different company.
No, but this is so innovative.
We don't have the intellectual property rights to that. But what was so fascinating to me is she said actually when. Because we have this good balance, and this has gone on for multiple years, they have them in these little like tanks for people to see on the tour. Other facilities will call and say, we have an outbreak or we have an infestation. And then we just give them here, you need these parasitoid wasps. And so that's another thing. And I don't think that this is exclusive to Disney. Everybody is very, giving, and you've got an outbreak, we'll help you. But it was another thing where I was like, well, that's really cool.
Yeah. Again, this innovation, these are just so many examples. And these are the things we got to figure out on Earth before we live off planet. Disney obviously has the space and the resources to do it, but I love that they're partnering with other companies, probably I know I've been on the lands with you, and there's other academic institutions and researchers that are able to participate, probably some interns and people who can study in the biosphere.
Research partners are incredibly important to not only Disney's future, but the past and current and what they've done. It's a neat place.
So Disney, does it have a culture, would you say, since you're on the inside and you work here, where innovation is rewarded in great ways? Or,
well, you and I talked a few times about the Lanny, and I can't think of his last name, but he was just inducted into the Inventors Hall of Fame. The only other Disney inventor who's been put into the Inventors Hall of Fame is Walt Disney.
Really?
Yes.
He's the only other one?
I believe that's correct.
Okay, tell us why, because this is fascinating.
He has over 100 patents to his name, but the one that's current that he's been working on and that has been in the media is the hollow tile. And it is...
What?
Yeah. Holla back, y'all. Ain't no holla back, girl. We can just edit that part out, but we'll fix it in post. But he saw a need where everything, so much is going to AI and to holograms and what those VR, thank
ARs,
you.
VRs.
And like I said AI, but that threw me off. The VR glasses, but a lot of that involves movement, and how are you going to do that? So he came up with a walking surface, not a treadmill, but these little individual tiles that you can just kind of walk in place. How great is this?
They look like, by the way, little hexagons.
They do.
Almost like tiles that would be on your bathroom floor. Maybe like 3-inch diameters, would you say? Just about.
Maybe an inch. Yeah.
Okay. And you can move in any direction. And you can start and stop. You don't have to. It's not a treadmill, like you said. You don't. And so I'm so intrigued by this because the applications for this are astounding. I'm thinking about people who need rehabilitation, people who need motion therapy, people who want to play, people who are limited by space, and they can be in their own contained space. Yeah, and they can exercise this way and walk this way. And,
yes.
This is fantastic.
Lanny Smoot, I looked up his last name just now, Lanny Smoot.
Okay.
And he has done incredible things, including having Madame Leota float in the seance room of Haunted Mansion. But the hollow tile is really, really incredible. And you said it too, people who need physical therapy, but maybe elderly, where we're not able to go out when it's horrible weather. But again, Chicago, anywhere. But even Florida, when it's horribly hot. So people who need PT or kids that maybe aren't able to be out in the middle of the day.
Are they super quiet? They could go right under their desk at school. And
they
could just wiggle, jiggle till they
really cool,
walk.
like whirring sound. I encourage people to look them up. I've seen them online. Yeah, okay. So
I'll put it in the show notes.
That would be a great link. There's YouTube links for them, but it is fascinating.
Innovation is rewarded. Innovation is part of the culture, and so we talk. And
there's a competition with some of that too, where he's the other Imagineers are trying. How can we plus it? How can we make it? How can we make it better? How can we make it silent? How can we incorporate this into really excelling in what we offer our guests?
I'm so glad to hear that, because I think when it's in the culture embedded, then, and it's rewarded and valued, then it doesn't seem like, it seems like it's driving towards a bright future. And the NASA culture, innovation is also rewarded and respected, but it's innovation towards building a better space exploration opportunity. And NASA has been great about giving all that tech transfer back to everyone, open source on Earth. And it's also very mission focused. So you're kind of innovating for mission focused based things like better telescopes, looking deeper into space, better spacesuits for humans to survive, better ways we can explore planets above and below ocean surfaces and all kinds of things. So those are the innovations, and not necessarily, although they do exist, direct to your home everyday life innovations, and I'm going to slap my own self in the face because there is a whole section of NASA tech transfer where you're thinking Mylar and Velcro and Tang, which are the traditionals, but they're not. Yeah, we can debunk them in another show. But those are inventive ways where we appreciate them each and every day. But back to the Disney story and back to having these innovations and having a culture that encourages and rewards innovations that continues.
I think there's two things that really indicate how much it is needed and respected and revered. Our engineers are called Imagineers. So it's not limited. It is what they can imagine, and then they engineer it. But the other thing is, too, in Epcot, as we were talking about, and this has evolved through the years, but one of the areas in Epcot was called Innoventions. And it was innovations that were also inventions. And that was a place for, it was definitely geared towards kids, but allowed them to explore. And that continues through, if you go into Figment, the Figment area, there's music. You can explore, how these different instruments sound. And it continues on through so much of it. Even Guardians of the Galaxy ride
That's pretty inventive.
So different than anything that I had ever ridden.
Me too. When you get off that ride, you're like, what just happened to me? I went backwards, sideways.
I feel great, but also not.
And confused. Which might be the best ride you could possibly take before going to space. Instead of Space Training 101, you just go ride Guardians.
Well, or Mission Space, which is just across the courtyard, and is also something that was worked on with NASA. To create the centrifuge type training, and has long been questioned by many people on whether that was really the greatest ride. And I'm speaking for myself because it was not my favorite.
No comment, no comment from this host. Okay, so when we are inventive, let's talk about when and how people can be inventive in their everyday lives. Because what happens when you don't work for Disney or NASA or a culture? Let's say your 9 to 5 does not reward inventive. And so solving problems, helping others, I think that's all part of it here, of some of the themes. But when it comes to like most people listening to this podcast in the space industry, they're future forward. We're thinking of a future where things are going to get more inventive. So what happens when that's not in your day? How does this get implemented? How can we be more like Walt Disney?
Yeah. Well, in much of Disney isn't inventive. We're not Imagineers. We're finance people and assistants and working in the retail shops. And what is great is there is still a culture there that if I say, it would be cool, and that's really what a lot of this is, you know what, this would be neat if, or this would solve a problem. So that is something that I would encourage people to do, is the part of, and this is actually, I will borrow from what I heard Lanny Smoot say when he was talking about this with a similar question, is get it out of your head. If you see something or you
put it
that's
out
a
there.
need,
put it out.
Yes, get it outside of your head and tinker and play and express to others. What would you think if? How could we do that? But really, you don't have to be an inventor. You have to be somebody who says, "Wait a minute, what could we do to improve this situation?" And does it have to be a new fangled roller coaster? No. But there are little things like Velcro that has made the world easier for a lot of people.
I hear you say, being inventive means helping to problem solve.
Sure.
Helping to change or shift perspective.
Yes, even if it's your own problem or your own, maybe not even a problem, just a way to optimize.
And
to
looking
to plus it.
I love it. I'm writing that down. And maybe a way to change a process, which is very difficult. It's like, I know you've already done this a million ways to Sunday in the past, but what if we did it differently? And then everyone's like, why? What are are you saying? And then you're like, oh, just hold on. Here, my thought out. Yeah, get it out of my head. I like that.
Yeah, just because you see it in the world doesn't mean other people are going to see it in the world until they see it in the world. And then they're all going to go, why didn't I think of that?
Kids.
Yes.
And you know what I love is sometimes my kids will do a chore so wrong. And when I say wrong, I just mean not my way.
Yeah.
And then I look at that and I go, I have a choice here. Either I reward them for doing the chore or I correct them and say, no, you did it wrong and it needs to be done this way. Which one serves the world, right?
Right.
And so I'm like, I've never seen a bed made that way. And also, is the bed made? Can we just all agree it's done? And so this inventiveness really is all around you. You just got to look at things with a different perspective. So just to wrap up, here's what I'm hearing. If we can't travel, we can look at things in a new perspective just by changing our daily routine. If we can't afford to, leave our daily routine, which can be challenging. If we can problem solve and share our ideas and get them outside of our head.
Get them out of your head. Yeah.
And I know this is hard for younger people, but if you can be brave enough to bring these, find a way, whether it's through HR or through your company or through your organization or through your academic institution, find a way to find a place where your idea can go and can land. Most places have some system in place where that will follow a path for you to present. Who knows where it goes, but I bet a path at least exists. Most companies have it, most institutions and academics. And looking at processes differently, perspectives differently, and how we can plus things in our life. I definitely have some on my list that I'm going to go out and start working on as soon as we're done, right now.
Right now.
Yeah, get it out of my head. Whatever lives on my little list of ideas, they usually end up on a sticky note in my office on my wall. You've seen my wall. Yes. It's full of sticky notes.
There's so many.
Sticky
notes were an innovation, right? That was a thing.
Thank you, 3M.
Yeah.
Or whoever did that.
I think it was 3M that bought it. Yeah, it was one of their inventors.
Yeah, and I'm with you too. I need a place where my mind can be inventive. So sticky notes for the shower is what I need. That's where I'm always I'm like, there it is.
I'm not mad at that.
Yeah, let's make that happen.
I really wow, okay.
Either that or, you know what sometimes will work? The, the whiteboard pens, markers.
Yeah. On the tile.
In the shower.
They do?
Well, I wouldn't recommend it.
How do you know? I think you've already solved this. This is a thing you just put out there, and now my brain is
you thought it was just a graffiti art installation. This is so interesting, and also what algorithm
fractions?
You thought I was doing a little. What is that guy's name from Aviation World that did all the algorithms? And then Howard Hughes. You thought I was Howard Hughesing up my bathroom?
Yeah, which is just at least you have a bathroom. Because Howard Hughes didn't use one all the time. But yeah, that's interesting. No, I really
I gotta write it down.
But a lot of people say that. And you know why? You know why? This is why a lot of ideas come to you in the shower. Because you're doing something that you've done, you can do it automated.
You're right.
And it gives your brain space to think about other things.
And you're a little relaxed. And you can't be multitasking except cleaning.
I would hope not. But you get in, you have a task, you've done it thousands and thousands of times.
Yeah.
So you don't really have to think about
driving.
Rinsing.
Are you innovative driving?
100%.
Are you innovative before you go to sleep?
Depends. I go to sleep really fast.
Yeah,
but I can be.
I do. Sometimes I have to. I'm so tired and I lay there and I'm like, I got to write this down. And then I get back up again, write it down.
I have written tremendous comedy sets.
In your mind?
In my mind. And then I'm like, I'll remember. That's too hilarious not to. And then I don't.
Well, come back on the show and give us those.
Okay, when I remember.
Seriously. Thank you, Hannah. I'm sure there's more Disney stuff. I encourage people to, take up. There's books at the library, a ton about Disney and his life and what he did. There's these shows coming out now that I love. There's even a few NASA stuff on innovation, too.
And send Beth ideas of things that you want us to talk about.
Oh, I thought you were going to say radishes.
No, that's rude. No, but they can comment like, I would like to learn more about this, because if you want to learn more about it, it is possible I've already spent a ridiculous amount of time researching. Okay. I do. That's my thing.
You do.
I do.
Because that's growth. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you.
All right. See you on the next series.
If you enjoyed this episode, give it some stars by rating and reviewing it on your podcast platform. Embrace the space. Casual space.